Let's say you had a technology where everybody has an ultrasound scan at home. They can scan themselves. Everybody's an ultrasound technician. The collected data is sent back to research hospitals. The radiologist is going to look at the image. They're not going to see the tumors. Sometimes maybe they will see it. And if it's in the mid-stage disease, early stage, they're still not going to see it. So you need to couple that with technologies that enhance the early stage disease.
Great having you on the podcast today. Excited to speak to you today and learn about your work at PONS. And I know you also work in academia yourself. So excited to speak to you and your expertise in point of care ultrasound, like we talked about, short for POCUS. You've spent over a decade bringing academic research and real world innovation together. So let's start by can you tell us the story of what led you to co-found PONS and how did your personal story with your father help shape the mission behind it?
Yeah, sure. So I'm originally from Turkey, Istanbul, and we lost our dad to a heart attack. And what made it extra hard was he got into an accident while driving a car. So he was having a heart attack. So we lost him after the accident. But then this is basically, he was a healthy person, but the situation could have been basically prevented if he was being monitored more frequently. Because he had history of heart attacks in his family. He was doing his regular checkups, but it was like a year or maybe every other 2 years. So it wasn't basically monitored frequently. And then one of the main challenges of that is like easy access to the monitoring services. Usually you have to go to the hospital to get that done, and then you have to wait. So that's one of the main challenges. So that's what basically pushed me into this area. And then my research focus has been always on ultrasound because of its ease of use, ease of access. And then for the last 6-7 years, point of care ultrasound devices because of basically their small size and possibility of collecting ultrasound data outside the hospital settings. But I was in academia, and especially, you probably know as well, academic people are more focused on innovation, technology, writing papers, and then making advances like in the domain. But then the technology or patents stay in academia. Like starting a company is usually challenging. You don't have time. You're teaching, you're doing other services for the university. And I was at Rutgers University in New Jersey at that time in the biomedical engineering department. So my co-founder, who's my twin brother, we always had discussions. Like he will tell me what he's doing. He was more like a business person, experience. He's involved in business development aspects in healthcare in different domains. So I would always talk to him what I've been doing, and he was always pushing me. We should start a company. We should start a company. This is amazing. This is what we need, and all that. And eventually, we started a company, and I would say almost like 100%, it was his push, and then I had the technology. Like the expertise in technology development behind it, and we had patents. So
I love that.
It was a good time to start, maybe.
Yeah. I love that. Two brothers fueled by a personal story with your own father, and that one strikes home for me because my own father also had a heart attack, and I'm sure early monitoring and
and this is just one example. A lot of we have families and friends, neighbors who've been in the same situation. We lost one of our very close friends to late stage breast cancer. Our aunt died a couple of years back for ovarian cancer. I had neighbors who had liver disease, kidney disease. So it's chronic conditions are very challenging if you catch them at a late stage, and preventative monitoring plays a big role in that aspect.
Yeah. I was joking with my parents the other day that I'm going to buy some devices for their home to monitor them, like as they get older, to track everything, even at the home, because that's the future of, you have to meet the patient where they want to be. Not all the patients want to necessarily go to a facility 24/7, but they want to receive care at the home, And so part of that is outside of the times where a caregiver or someone comes to visit you, you need monitoring, right, in place.
Yeah.
So it's almost, I feel like that'll become the standard, as the years go on and more boomers retire and technology gets stronger, and better. And so
I agree.
Yeah.
And especially with aging population, as you mentioned as well, they would like the age in place. Like they want the services come to their homes because they feel comfortable. They don't want to commute to the hospital. Sometimes they live in rural areas, and then that takes extra time. And then you as well, like you mentioned as well, there's a lot of actually studies coming out that like the older generation is more comfortable with technology. So that's an advantage as well, because the adaptation of these new technologies plays a major role. You can have the technology, but if it's not used properly or if it's
Yeah.
not adapted by the patients, then it's not gonna be useful, right? So, but I agree. Like I think you're going in the right direction. Like we will get there.
Right.
We're already there. It will become part of our lives, basically.
Yeah. And I think what you said, the key word there is more comfortable with technology. I
Mm-hmm.
think, it's still more comfortable compared to older generations because
Yeah.
the boomers are like my own father who's retiring,
Mm-hmm.
like their technology is still like something they don't fully adopt all the time, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
more comfortable for sure, and
Yeah.
as the generations keep on coming, the boomers, that there's going to be more of a push to adopt technology.
Yeah. I
And
agree
so
100%.
on that topic, you guys at PONS, you're really rethinking ultrasound and you're bringing, you know, what looks to me like to be AI enhanced imaging to
Mm-hmm.
non-traditional settings
Yep.
for earlier diagnosis, like we talked about, and risk assessment, like
Mm-hmm.
basically assessing risk before they happen and catastrophic risks like a heart
Yeah.
attack. What makes this shift so critical and why now?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So again, as I mentioned, like chronic diseases like breast cancer, which is our main focus area, if you catch the disease at an earlier stage, it's preventable, right? So, but then that requires monitoring high risk patients. These are patients who don't have the disease yet, but they're in the high risk group. For breast cancer, it can be someone who has breast cancer in their family,
Mm,
or they have dense breasts, who are on the high risk group, or they have some sort of specific markers like DNA markers or RNA markers that put them in a high risk group. So if you're in that group, you need to be monitored more frequently. That same idea can apply to different chronic conditions, heart disease as well, like lung disease, liver disease, right? But usually patients are monitored once a year, or even if they are scheduled for monitoring regular checkups, they miss their appointments due to other major obligations, be it like obligations to the family, work, or traveling to the nearest
right.
hospital, or if they live in rural areas, the nearest hospital is 2 3 hours away. So that is basically what we were focused on. So how can we change this aspect? Like how can we collect the monitor patients who are in the high risk group more frequently and catch the disease before it happens? Because if you catch that, you can like the managing the early stage disease is easier than late stage disease, right?
Right.
And there's also the other aspect of that is basically this comes from my collaborations with clinicians. Anytime we were submitting an NIH grant or an NSF grant, we always wanted to catch the disease at an earlier phase, right? Because that's everybody wants to do that. And then we wanted to develop AI solutions for that. But then AI needs data, right? So we don't have that data on early stage disease. We have data on people who are healthy, who are doing their regular checkups. So we have that data over there. And we have data from patients who are admitted to the hospital with certain kind of pain and they're diagnosed with late stage disease. So we have the two spectrums of the disease, right? So healthy and late stage. We don't have anything in between the early stage or how the disease progresses. So with our technology, we wanted to also collect that data as well. There's challenges, and ultrasound is the reason why we picked ultrasound is because ultrasound, as I mentioned, is a mobile imaging technology. It's safe. These point of care devices are very small. You can connect it to your cell phone, to your tablet. You can do scanning anywhere you want. But the couple challenges with ultrasound is like number one, the image quality is low, not good enough compared to MRI, CT, or mammography scans to catch disease at an early stage. So because
Mm,
of that, ultrasound is usually used as a secondary imaging modality to do like additional imaging for late stage disease. If it's late stage disease, the tissue changes are clearly visible in ultrasound, but early stage is not. That's why we are attacking that problem with point of care ultrasound, with focus designing solutions that enhance the quality and also bring the data collection outside the traditional hospital settings. Because if you want to monitor patients more frequently, you need to bring the imaging acquisition to the patients and bring ultrasound to the mass market.
interesting. So it sounds like the focus on ultrasound really comes down to wanting to capture more data for early stage
Mm-hmm.
diseases. You said like imaging isn't as advanced as other imaging, like MRI, CT scans. So this allows you guys to basically understand that better when it happens. And then finally, typically, you find that like we spoke about at center, like imaging centers, like basically places outside your traditional like hospital and facility settings, right? And so it
Yeah.
makes it a natural fit for you guys to focus on ultrasound, it sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's totally it. Like we make ultrasound so that it can be utilized for imaging early stage disease. We improve the quality of the data. We make invisible early stage disease tissue changes visible. And so that the radiologists, when they look at the early stage disease from ultrasound, they can see the very early stage tumor present in the
Wow.
tissue. The other thing we do, our technology does, is we scale the data set size. From one image, we can generate 40, 50 different images. So that what that does is like anytime any AI solution you are developing improves, you improve the performance, you improve the
Yeah.
accuracy, you improve the size. Because with AI, the more data you have, the better the AI learns and gets.
Right.
So we
Right.
are also overcoming that challenge.
Well, yeah, and it, from even from like a cost perspective too, like these ultrasounds making them portable is
Mm-hmm.
cost effective, because I know an MRI, CT scan, they can
Yeah,
cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, multiplied by
yeah,
many scanners.
yeah,
So
yeah. Yeah, and again, so you can't, as you mentioned as well, cost is one. The size, you cannot bring MRI machine
yeah,
outside the hospital site. Anything. There are
yeah,
portable MRI units, but again, it's
yeah,
the cost is still high. With ultrasound, it's again cheap. The cost is going down to $3,000-4,000 right now. But again, the image quality is always a challenge with ultrasound, and especially anytime you shrink any kind of imaging modality to a smaller, compact size, you gain from the cost, you reduce the cost, which is a good thing, but then you also basically degrade the image quality, right? Because
mm,
smaller things have, like imaging modalities, have worse image quality. So that's why we're tackling that. I mean, ultrasound to begin with has a lower image quality, and then you lowering that further, and then trying to incorporate the images you collect from point of care ultrasound devices into traditional imaging settings, or not non-traditional imaging settings. So you need to overcome the image quality, and that's what we're attacking early stage disease, and that separates PONS from other companies in this domain who are developing different AI solutions.
yeah, no, right on. And I want to ask you about that. I know that's important to you. What the work you guys are doing is making these early stage tissue changes like visible in ultrasound.
Yeah,
From what I understand, you have a software, right? And it's like device agnostic. It doesn't rely on
correct.
what are called like chemical contrast agents.
Mm-hmm.
How does the AI models in your software like enhance that image quality and give clinicians insights that would otherwise go undetected?
Yeah, no, that's great. So with contrast agents, so there's like a protocol called technology called contrast enhanced ultrasound. You inject a contrast agent to the human body, and then when you image that with ultrasound, that makes the invisible tissue visible. So we're doing that without injecting a contrast
Ah,
agent. So that's basically a safer option. It doesn't require the injection of a contrast agent, which needs to be done in a controlled environment. And so we're overcoming that challenge. So it's a patented technology. The couple of the things that work for our advantages. So the main image enhancement technology that we have is basically a non-AI solution. So it's a sophisticated image processing method that basically enhances the quality of ultrasound data. And this is based on my research that I started doing during my PhD. So basically back in 2005.
wow.
And then so we patented that, and it scales the data set size as well. And then on top of that, what we're doing is that by using these large scale enhanced images, we're developing AI solutions that further improve the early stage disease visibility, from ultrasound data. So we are the only company who does that, because we have the technology behind us. And that's why we wanted to focus on early stage disease, because it's a lot of companies can't do that because the technology they are using doesn't allow them to do that. So they're focusing on late stage disease. So for us, we wanted to focus on that. And again, we did publish this technology in higher ranked journals and presented in international conferences. Currently, we're doing a pilot with Mayo Clinic where we're showing that the technology advancement works significantly improves the AI solution accuracy. The other thing it does is like AI is basically, if you train an AI model on data collected from, let's say, some people located in New Jersey area, if you want to take the AI model and then deploy it in California, because of the distributional changes, ethnicity, gender changes, the AI success drops down, right?
Mm,
So our enhancement brings everything into a common domain so that AI solutions are not biased towards from these basically metadata, we call it. Let's say it's not biased towards any gender, any ethnicity, any age. So those are the basically, when you're developing an AI solution, you would like to have these as part of the AI, so that anything it outputs is purely based on the disease, not on the ethnicity, not on the age or the body mass index of the patient, geographical location where they live. So it's basically independent of that, which is like, we're very happy actually with the Mayo Clinic pilots that we're doing, a Mayo Clinic Accelerate program. We're showing that. So we hopefully will publish that very soon as well.
That's fascinating because I know you mentioned earlier like data is a problem with early stage like disease, and it sounds like you guys have a technology that not just enhances the imaging results, but the actual like data set itself before, and then
Yes,
on top of that, you have AI that developed that further improves that early stage
exactly.
like diagnosis and assessment. That's
Yep,
fascinating.
yep, that's
Interesting.
correct.
Wow. Okay, so you guys have really tackled it from both areas. Like you knew the
Yeah.
problem going in, and you've built a solution that addresses both in an area where, like you said, a lot of companies out there focus on late stage, but
Yeah.
you guys are really focused on the early stage piece of it.
Correct. Yeah, that's we are very actually happy about that we're tackling that again. That's the missing part. It's just like there's a lot of focus on late stage disease, how we manage that, but early stage disease is much challenging, and that was the focus that we wanted to, or the challenge that we wanted to address.
Yeah, right on. And so, this is a big challenge on its own. I know we're simplifying it down and you guys have a clear solution for it, but what are some of the biggest hurdles you guys have faced so far, whether in clinical validation, right? Getting clinicians to trust the data, having them adopt the software, the solutions, whether it's just the data piece or data and AI, or navigating partnerships. I know you mentioned the pilot of Mayo Clinic.
Mm-hmm.
What are
Yeah.
some of those biggest hurdles you guys have faced so far?
I mean, the trust is always comes with the clinicians. It's always like they want to see the outcome, right? How do you enhance? Show me the enhanced results. So we're showing them that, and then they're basically providing their feedback. I don't like it. I like this. Or, oh, I'm not used to looking at these images in this way. Like, how can you provide it this way? So that's, you always get the feedback from the clinicians when you're developing a technology. And I was lucky enough, when I was at Rutgers, I started collaborating with excellent clinicians from the radiology and New Jersey Cancer Institute. So we had very good feedback. And with Mayo Clinic, again, if you with Mayo Clinic Accelerate program, you're part of that. So it's a big name, right? So we're getting access to their data sets. They're supporting us, and then we're talking with their radiologists. So when we show them this is what we can do, these are the results from the AI. You see, it's not affected by age, sex, or ethnicity. It's not affected by Mayo Clinic has different locations all
Yes.
around the country, right? So it's not affected where the images are coming from. It's giving you the same accuracy and robustness. So when you show them that, so they trust in the technology. When you trust in the technology, the adaptation will be easy, right? So, but then if you don't have that, and building a trust, it's a process. It doesn't happen over time, right? So we are like, again, like this is company is almost 2.5 years old, but the technology behind it, I've been working on it for the last 20 years. So that has a backup for that. So it's, again, building the trust. Once the trust is there, the clinicians adopt the technology. So, but again, it's a process. So for us, again, it was a process. It's not like we started a company and then our first pilot was with Mayo Clinic right away. It's because
Right.
we built the trust. We shared them our publications, the results. Now we are validating that, showing the technology actually does what we were telling them that it does. So when you show them that, the the rest comes again. But then anytime you develop an AI solution, deployment of that technology inside the clinical or healthcare settings is always challenging. It's hard. But then a lot of major research hospital centers like Mayo Clinic, they have programs that basically that will allow you to evaluate your technology, and then eventually, if it passes certain stages, they end up deploying it, right? So getting the trust from the clinicians, it's a process. It doesn't happen over time. You need to listen to them, and you get the feedback, and then you change or adapt your technology based on that feedback, because eventually at the end of the day they're going to use that, right? So
Right.
sometimes some technology, if you're coming up with something very new and novel, the adaptation might take some time, but there will be, if you show that it eventually helps the patient care. We can identify patients at the disease at an earlier stage. We can treat them better. I can triage the patients with our technology. Not everybody has to be at the hospital. You can triage the patients outside the hospital setting. So you basically overcome the challenge of overcrowding the hospitals, right? So only the basically very high risk patients, if they switch from a no risk to a high risk, they can be basically admitted to the hospital. Or can you save, let's say, if a radiologist is looking at an ultrasound data, is spending on it, let's say 5 to 10 minutes to understand where the disease is, where the tumor is, how big the tumor size is. And if you add basically, if the radiologist looks at 50, 60 different patients per day, that adds up their workload. But if you can provide them the enhancement, if you can see the tumor right away, if you drop down that diagnostic or radiology report generation time significantly, they will adopt that, right? So
Yeah.
they will be happy adopting that kind of technology.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it comes down to two things: trust, and then deploying that solution in the clinical setting. And I mean, with anything, any new
Yeah.
solution, trust is key. But you guys have been able to really show through your strong partnership with Mayo, like, hey, look, this isn't affected by location, age, etc. Like because that's a common problem in healthcare, is like
Yeah.
not a problem, but something unique, I think, in our US healthcare system is every geography is unique. Like a health
Yep.
system can be across multiple states, but their
Mm-hmm.
patient population in each state wildly different. Like
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Mayo
Yeah.
is in Florida, Arizona, and then people don't know all over Minnesota and Wisconsin, and
Yeah.
those populations are all different.
Yeah.
So the fact that you're able to show them, like, hey, look,
Yeah.
this isn't impacted by that. We're able to, I think you called it earlier, bring everything into a common domain
Mm-hmm.
is huge. And then when you get to deploy it in the clinical setting, I think the point you made around identifying those patients that go from no risk to high risk ahead of time before they show up at their doorstep or are booking an appointment because
Yeah.
something's going wrong
Yeah.
is huge. Not reduces, excuse me, it improves outcomes if you're able to, get that early diagnosis.
Yeah.
So that's
No. Yeah. Again, like the Mayo Clinic Platform Accelerate program is fantastic in that we're very happy with that. We're starting a new pilot with Memorial Sloan Kettering again very soon, and Rutgers University Hospital in New Jersey as well. These are again like basically further evaluate what we're doing and what we are basically saying we can do, because you need that validation from the
yeah,
research hospitals and big cancer centers.
yeah,
And it's a process. It doesn't That's the one thing I think. I mean, I like being in the healthcare domain. I'm in the healthcare domain as an academic. We are in the healthcare domain as a company. It's fascinating because we have a goal, like, which is the goal is basically provide technology so that nobody loses their loved ones from preventable diseases, right? That's our main goal. So, but then in healthcare domain, everything, it's a slow process, right? Because nothing happens over time. You're not developing an app for social media, right? It's a human health eventually, and then that takes process. It's not easy. There's a lot of ups and downs. I mean, you can show eventually it works, and that's basically high point of this what we're trying to do.
right. It builds trust, like you were talking about. The
Mm-hmm.
more outcomes that or
Yeah.
the more validation you're able to do and
Yes.
provide more
Exactly.
demonstratable outcomes, the better.
Yeah. Yeah.
The easier it's going to be to build that trust.
Exactly. Yeah. So again, it's with any kind of like healthcare technology. That's the roadmap to success, right?
Yeah.
So build the trust, make sure what you're telling is actually does what it does, and then take it from there.
Yeah, and you said something interesting too as part of these like pilots you're doing is like you're getting feedback from radiologists, other clinicians, like, hey, I'm not interested in seeing the
Mm-hmm.
image this way. Like, I want to see it this other way. It sounds like you guys are able to like adapt, or you are adapting the solution to what these radiologists and other clinicians not enjoy seeing, but what makes it
They
actionable to
used
them.
to. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
no, no. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's one thing. And sometimes it's also like if you're developing something new, some of the enhancements we're showing are basically they can clearly see the invisible tumor in that enhanced image, but then they are not really used to looking at that image. But then, because their eyes are trained at looking at certain images, right, like grayscale ultrasound scans, right? If you show them in a color-coded ultrasound scan, they're not used to that. But then they can clearly see the enhanced tumor region there. They're right away they can pick that up. Oh, that's great. I can see that more clearly versus the grayscale image that my eye is trained on.
Yeah.
but I'm not used to looking at the surrounding of that, but I can see the tumor. And that's why when we do show them the enhancement, they always look at the original data in front of them. They look at the enhancement results from different images that we show. We provide them a risk score and a diagnostic score, and then they use that information to decide, make their decisions. Like we basically augmenting their decision making process with more information. It's like the more information you can provide them, trustable information, right? That's trusted, validated. The better they will make their clinical decision making. If you can show invisible tumors, make them visible. They can catch the disease earlier. They can basically manage the diseases earlier, right? And then
Yeah.
patients, and that all starts with, again, monitoring patients more frequently and providing image quality improvements. Because the other thing is, like, let's say you had a technology where, let's say everyone, this is like, we can think about it as like, it's a fantastic dream. If everybody has an ultrasound scan at home, they can scan themselves, right? They basically learned how to use ultrasound. Everybody's an ultrasound technician. Let's say we have that picture done. The collected data is sent back to the research hospitals. Radiologists look at that. But the main challenge, again, it comes down to, well, ultrasound, if you cannot enhance the early stage disease, what is that going to do? The radiologist is going to look at the image. They're not going to see the tumors. Sometimes maybe they will see it, man, if it's in the mid-stage disease. Early stage, they're still not going to see it. So you need to couple that with technologies that enhance the early stage disease. So data collection is one aspect. Enhancement is the second aspect, and then scaling the data set size is the third aspect, which helps the AI solutions you're developing. So we're tackling all the missing pieces together.
Yeah, that's fascinating. It's a very compelling solution. It's clear you guys are tackling it from those 3-4 levels. But you did mention earlier, Mayo, MSK, Rutgers, like examples of big health systems, hospitals. But this has applications in like the outpatient, like imaging center world as well,
Yeah.
right? Because there's centers that patients can go to, which one of those is what I may have or may have not visited to get my own ultrasound like a few months back. So I know those centers are out there. This applies to them too, right? Where they send ultrasound imaging to radiologists sometimes they're not even in the same zip code. They might be in another
Yeah.
state.
Teleradiology plays a big role. Like the imaging center can be in New Jersey, but then if the data is sent to a teleradiology company, the radiologist can be logged in from California and reading your ultrasound scans, right?
Right.
So again, yeah, the technology, the enhancement part can be deployed in outpatient imaging care centers, outpatient imaging service centers, or teleradiology companies, right? So if a center, if you collect your ultrasound scan, if a radiologist looks at the scan locally at that imaging center, they can look at the original data, they can use our enhancement results, and if they have their custom AI solutions, they can scale the data using our scaling technology and then improve their accuracy of their AI solutions. Or if a teleradiology company accesses this collected data, and then if ultrasound and radiologist logs in from California, and then they look at your original ultrasound data, they use our enhancement technology, make better, see the invisible tumor, they use their AI and using our scale data, and make the decision faster. So less time spent in front of the monitor for them, better outcome, better accuracy in terms of diagnostic accuracy, risk assessment accuracy, better image quality, and better and large scale data. So they will have all these services available as well. So that's some of the aspects we want to deploy our technology as well. Make it available at outpatient imaging centers, make it available as part of teleradiology services, and hopefully help everyone.
Yeah, I love that. Something that is applicable to radiologists that don't just work in hospital settings and different settings.
Yep,
So
yep.
right on. Yeah. So what's next for PONS and the teams? I'm curious, and like how can other clinicians like radiologists, researchers, or partners who share your same vision for decentralizing diagnostics get involved with your team?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, they can reach out to us. We're happy to talk with anyone, right? We're talking with like some research hospitals based out of Europe, in France, Spain, and Germany, Middle East region. They just, if they want solutions like ours, we are happy to talk to them. We're happy to start new pilot studies with them and show that technology really does what we're telling them it's doing. Yeah, that's usually, we're a very open company. We just, if you can find us on online. if you Google PONS ultrasound or PONS tech, you can find me on LinkedIn. Again, we're very open, collaborating new partnerships, different research hospitals, teleradiology companies, outpatient imaging service centers, or pharma. Pharma is interested in decentralized clinical trials. If they're deploying ultrasound, that's also the other thing we can do as well.
There's a wide net of applicability here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not just, in other words, what you're saying is, if we go to ChatGPT and ask who's the expert in point of care ultrasound, PONS is going to come up.
I hope at some point.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
All right on. Well, Ilker, it was a pleasure having you on the podcast today. I'm definitely going to keep tabs on your guys' journey, and the fact that you guys have a personal story like fueling this. You really understand the problem at multiple levels and what it's going to take, not just to make ultrasound portable, but really make the data you get from it actionable, and then using AI to really train on that data set. And so that health systems, or let's call it providers that are serving different patients in different locations, don't have to worry about the reliability of the data, because you guys bring everything into a common domain,
Yeah.
So I love what you guys are doing, and I will definitely keep tabs. And I think the listeners of the podcast will be excited and curious about what we talked about today.
No, thank you so much again. Thank you for having us. We're very always happy to talk with in a podcast, or just provide our opinion about our expertise. I mentioned research hospitals, but patients can reach out to us as well. We are not doing, basically, we're not providing diagnostic services. We're not clinicians, but we'd love to hear back from them. Like how was your imaging journey when you were getting breast scans? How was your imaging journey when you're getting echocardiography scans? So we'd love to hear from patients, their journey, because we want to improve that journey as a company. And then again, thank you for having us. We're always happy that we bring ultrasound to the mass market, and then changing the world for managing early stage disease detection for chronic conditions.
Yeah, right on, 100%. Yeah, pleasure speaking to you today, Ilker, and thanks for making some time.
Thank you, Bert. Very nice meeting you, and hopefully I'll see you somewhere in person.